What's going on, folks? Thanks for hitting that download button and checking out a brand new episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade, your one-stop shop for toys, tech, and talk with some assembly required. I'm your host, Rich, and if this is your first time checking out an episode, first of all, welcome. Second of all, a brief bit of background on what we do here. Toys and Tech of the Trade is an interview series where we sit down with content creators, entrepreneurs, and just kick-ass folks who are out there doing really awesome things and sharing the gadgets, gear, and tech that go into making their products, running their businesses, or creating their content for that matter. When it comes to toys, we like to focus on that and use quotes when it comes to toys because it's not just relegated to action figures, Funko Pops, things like that, but it could be cars, motorcycles, could be musical instruments, knives. You'd be surprised what some people use for their excuse to obsess over when it comes to toys, not necessarily relegated to the stuff I just mentioned. So this week, before we get into what we're going to discuss, first of all, I want to thank everybody who's been so patient with us as we transition, then move to the brand new RageWorks Podcast Network site. Very proud of what we've accomplished, and we have some other shows on the horizon, including another podcast that I might be doing, but it's going to be a limited series. That one's going to be very, very interesting. In addition to that, we may be bringing in some additional new talent as well that I'm very excited about, and hopefully I will have updates for you in further episodes. Now, one thing I did want to mention, I know a lot of you have been asking with regards to what we're doing with YouTube and why the YouTube channel's been a little quiet as of late. Really just a matter of trying to figure out a right balance between, work, being a new father, and just everything else. Plus, just trying to give you guys good content there. The RageWorks YouTube channel should, in theory, be built on the fact that it's, gaming, entertainment, pop culture. And I share our, podcast there. Well, the ones I do personally, just to give people another way to listen. I know some of you prefer using YouTube, especially because it's one of the few URLs that you find friendly at work. But honestly, I've also noticed that there's been a bit of a downtick in terms of people using the YouTube channel for at least podcast consumption. Everything else is fine. So a bit of a stress test out there with regards to how you're consuming the shows. Do you use YouTube? Do you find any value in it? Shoot me a line, rich@rageworks.net. Would be curious to know your thoughts. Also, I know some people have asked about a Q&A episode, and we're definitely going to do more of those. So with that said, I want to start building up questions for the next Q&A episode. So feel free to reach out, rich@rageworks.net, for that via email, or you can find us on social media, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and we're going to put posts there dedicated to building a brand new question of the day episode. Well, a Q&A episode, not a question of the day, a Q&A episode for future airing. So we're definitely going to start building that out. So again, follow us on social if you haven't. Links for it will be in the show notes for this episode. All right. So this week's show is going to be a little different than what we do normally. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about conventions and the gear that at least I personally recommend for conventions. And the reason that I came up with this is because right now, it's October in New York City, and a lot of conventions have been coming up. Right now, New York Comic Con just finished, and RageWorks will be at the Photo Plus Expo next week. Actually, 2 weeks from today, 2 weeks from Friday. So the thing about it is that we get asked often, especially me, because I'm a gadget freak and I like having different things. What do you use to cover events? What do you recommend to cover events? And I figured that would make a great episode, and it would be kind of like what Tim Ferriss likes to call the in-between episodes, just to give a little bit of a break between all the interviews. So with that said, this episode's going to be focused on that, and it's just going to give some actionable advice, a couple of tips and different things for those of you that are running websites or YouTube channels and you want to cover events and you want some product recommendations. That's what this episode is going to be about. Also, while we are on the subject of product episodes, we will be doing another gift guide for this year. A lot of you seem to have loved that and really enjoyed some of the recommendations we brought to the table. So we're definitely going to be doing that as well. But you're not here for that. You're here to hear about gadgets and gear and recommendations for cons. So for me personally, I was a person that covered a lot of different events at one point before my daughter was born. And man, I was guilty of one of the biggest sins, which is carrying a lot of stuff. And you think you're going to need 100 different things to cover events. And as I got more and more experienced covering events and attending events, I realized that you didn't really need a lot of that stuff. You basically need, if you're going to be doing shooting, you obviously need your camera, your lenses, spare batteries, etc. If you're going to be doing podcasts, we're going to get into that. And if you're going to be doing video work, there's so many different options. So for me personally, my original setup used to be a camera to shoot stills. I used to carry a Canon XA10 video camera for interviews and things of that nature, only because you're probably asking yourself, if you have a camera, why are you carrying a video camera? Well, at the time I was shooting with a Sony A6300, and those cameras were notorious for overheating and also obviously the recording limit. And there were instances where we wanted to record interviews or I was doing some work in the field, and it would go longer than 30 minutes, and I didn't want to have to worry about the stresses of, oh, I got to have batteries, or, oh, I've got to have, multiple SD cards, et cetera, et cetera. With the Canon XA10, which is a really good camera that you could probably pick up for around $700 or $800 now, since new versions have been released since then. The Canon XA10 had a handle at the top with 2 XLR ports. So I was able to put a shotgun mic, or if necessary, plug in a handheld mic to do interviews, or a wireless mic pack to do run and gun shooting. And it was great. And what I would do is, like I said, I'd set it up. I'd take a tripod with me and plug in a wireless handheld mic, go set up the shot, frame the shot, and conduct my interviews or whatever was needed at the time. And again, that's great if you're a solo operator, or even if you're working with a second person. That person could handle the zooming in, zooming out, things of that nature. Check your levels, make sure it's good. When you're by yourself, though, it's definitely a little tougher. The articulating screen is huge, though, to help you frame the shot, as are the audio levels to make sure that they're shown on screen and you have audio coming in. These things are all crucial. And like I said, the focus is good. The color, Canon color science is great. So definitely, that at the time was a great approach. As I said, I was shooting stills with the Sony A6300, and I was using an 18-105 f4 lens. Now, the 18-105 lens, not only is it a great lens for video, but it also has internal zoom, which means that you don't have to turn the barrel and extend the lens for it to zoom. All the zooming is done internally, which is really, really nice. I mean, it's a big lens by most standards, but what's good about it is that the internal zoom is good. The f4 is nice, gives you a little bokeh, and obviously, the optical steady shot is great on that lens as well. Really enjoyed it. Shot tons and tons of photos at numerous events with it, and really, really loved the lens. So those were what I was using for image capture. With regards to interviews, I was using an Audio-Technica System 10, which is a wireless handheld mic and a digital receiver that I would plug into my Canon XA10. That was pretty much it. But of course, to have a video camera and everything else, you have to have a big ass backpack. And I was carrying a Tomba backpack, which I picked up at a booth at the Photo Plus Expo. And that was, it's a good backpack, man, but it's ridiculously huge. If you're trying to get away from the whole turtle shell backpack look, the Tomba backpack is not the way to go. There's other recommendations, which I'll give, but definitely not the way to go. So that was pretty much my setup. The Canon XA10, Sony A6300 with the 18-105 lens. And that pretty much handled all the all the video and photo work. Now, when it comes to podcasting on the go, I used to be a big user of the Tascam Dr-40, which had two XLR mic jacks where you can go set it up and you're off to the races in terms of interviewing. You can also record with handheld with the internal mics, internal with the included mics that are part of the unit. I've since upgraded to the Zoom H6. Now, the Zoom H6 is good because you can plug in up to 4 microphones, plus you can add an accessory to add an additional 2 microphones. So in theory, you can record up to 6 channels, which is amazing. Now, one thing I want to say about that is that it's not cheap. You know, it's a $300 to $350 device. But I got to tell you, if you're looking to podcast, get some interviews, and just have a great easy mobile setup, the Zoom H6 is what I definitely recommend. You can also do the H4n or the H5. They're a little cheaper, but I like the Zoom H6 because of just the freedom and the flexibility. And it truly is a podcast studio in your pocket. It has dials for each channel to adjust the audio. You can power it via USB, and the preamps are really good to give you good, clear audio sound. I've used that to podcast on the go in numerous instances, but in addition to that, it's a great recorder to have as a backup if you're podcasting or recording audio in your studio space. Definitely you run a line out from your PC or your mixer right into the Zoom H6, and that'll cover you in regards to having a separate backup recording, because again, things happen, computers crash, programs crash, etc., etc. We've all been there. Zoom H6 has been a lifesaver, and it's saved my ass on more than one occasion, that's for sure. I gotta tell you though, if you're not powering via USB, take some rechargeable batteries. Rechargeable batteries are huge for that. But if you have a nice, good USB battery pack, you should be able to power it via the USB battery pack as well. So definitely huge devices that, like I said, save my ass on more than one occasion. Now, since then, things have changed quite a bit. The A6300 was replaced by a Canon M50 because of the Canon dual pixel autofocus, which was really good. The only thing that the Canon M50 doesn't do is record really good 4K. Like, it doesn't use the dual pixel autofocus for the 4K. So unless you're shooting on a tripod or just have incredible grip strength to make sure that it doesn't move, you risk having a little bit of shake when you record 4K footage. Plus, there's also the crop that some people complain about. Not something I cared about personally. Plus, I was doing a lot of my videos in 1080p. So if you're a big Canon fan, the Canon M50 is solid. It also is good because you can get the Canon adapter and you can adapt any of your Canon glass to the M50, which uses an EFM mount. And the beauty of that is that you can use all that Canon glass on a smaller body and still get that dual pixel autofocus and that Canon color science. But my issue with Canon was I liked it. I thought it was good. I felt that the autofocus at times was really slow. And, just having to use it for video, I said, I'm going to get rid of my Canon XA10 and I'm going to get rid of my Sony camera and just shoot handheld with the Canon. And like I said, it was good, but I kind of felt that the picture was lacking a bit. So when Sony announced the A6400, I really am a Sony fan when it comes to cameras. I went back to the 6400, which is what I'm currently using, and it has the Sony autofocus has improved tremendously. But the thing that got me is no recording limit. So that was massive, because no recording limit, of course, I can use it for longer form presentations, panels, etc. And then obviously you're relegated to just, if you run out of space on the SD card, that's the bigger problem. But no recording limit. I haven't had it overheat. Shooting longer than 30 minutes. Obviously, results may vary if you're in a hot area, etc. But no recording limit, no overheating. The Sony A6400 has been great. And what I ended up getting was the Sigma 18 to 35 art lens, which I originally had purchased from Adorama for a huge steal that they had on it. I think I paid about $600 for that lens, and it's usually substantially more. Got a great deal from Adorama, and I was using it with the Canon M50, and it was just beautiful, beautiful pictures, and just amazing, amazing, amazing photos. Like some of the photos I took of my daughter and just various functions were just tremendous. And don't get me wrong, the body is a big part of it, but the glass is crucial. So when I sold my Canon M50 to get the A6400, all I ended up doing was just buying a Sigma MC11 adapter. And, you know, I'm using the Sigma 18-35 with my Sony A6400. Now, if you're someone that shoots portraits or vlogging, you can pick up a 10-18, which is a little expensive though, that the Sony glass, but you can also get a Sigma 16mm, which I like, which I've seen a lot of people vlog with, and it's probably going to be my next purchase. You know, the colors are great. The focus is nice. It's just a great all around lens. But since switching to the A6400, like I said, I've tried to just go smaller and smaller with all of my gear. I picked up a small rig hot shoe relocator because obviously the Sony A6400, if you're not aware, the monitor folds up. So you're able to, you know, do selfies or vlogging. But the problem is that if you put a mic on that center hot shoe, you are, of course, obscuring the monitor. So Small Rig and countless other companies, Ulanzi and a few others, have made shoe relocators that you'll be able to relocate the hot shoe to various places on the camera, whether it's to the left side, to the right side, or just to on the side of the camera itself. You have a couple of options. The Small Rig one I picked up lets me relocate the hot shoe to the left side, but it also gives me a separate hot shoe plate on top. So if I wanted to throw on a little light, which I use a small Manfrotto light, which I'll link to in the show notes, you got a great run and gun rig right there. And if you want to go obviously bigger, you can always throw a Small Rig cage around it, which I had on my M50 and on my A6300. If you put a cage around it, it'll add a little bit more bulk to your camera, but it'll also give you bunches of mounting options. You can put lights, you can put handles if you're going to do any low shooting, etc. You have so many different options available once you add a Small Rig cage that it's sometimes just a good investment to have on the side for future use. I mean, you can probably pick a Small Rig cage for the 6400 between 30 and 50 bucks, perhaps even a little cheaper. And it's a solid pickup. The Small Rig shoe relocator, I paid, I want to say I paid about 25 bucks for it, but I'll check and I will link to it in the show notes. So my current shooting rig is the Sony A6400. I'm using the 16-50 kit lens that it came with because it's small, autofocus is good, pocket size. You can just keep the camera in a coat pocket or cargo pants if you're a cargo pants person, and just pull it out, boom, 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 get your shots, keep it moving. For video, it's pretty good, and I'm using like I said, the Sigma 18-35 art for shooting as well. I'm going to pick up the Sigma 16mm for video work, and that's probably going to be my kit for events going forward. But like anything else, the pursuit for more gear continues. I picked up an Osmo Pocket gimbal, which is something I want to use because a lot of times, especially if you're going to Toy Fair, New York Comic Con, a lot of toys and a lot of things are behind glass, and you don't want to deal with the glare. So obviously you can pick up a filter for your lens, and that'll let you obviously deal with some of the glare. But usually one of the biggest tricks that I've recommended is you take your cell phone and you put your cell phone up against the glass to shoot any particular toys or any of that stuff. But with the Osmo Pocket, I like it because it allows me to, you know, do some nice panning shots, gimbal shots, and also, you know, time lapse. But the thing about it is I had experimented getting a gimbal from my phone and it just didn't work. It was the Zhiyun Smooth Q, and I tried it and it was just very cumbersome, and trying to fit it in my backpack, it was just a huge pain. And again, I'm trying to go smaller and smaller and smaller with my kit. So the Osmo Pocket I've been experimenting with, playing around with, and you'll probably see more stuff shot with the Osmo Pocket on our IGTV videos. I want to start doing more toy stuff and using the Osmo Pocket to zoom in close and show some of the details. So the Osmo Pocket thus far has been good. It's not cheap. It's about 300 bucks. And like anything else, you're stuck buying like different accessories for it. Like it comes with a pouch, it comes with the mounting options for the connecting options for either an iOS device or an Android with USB-C. But you spend money. Like I had to buy the scroll wheel. I bought the Wi-Fi stand, which allows you to connect your phone via Wi-Fi and control the gimbal with your phone, which is nice. And also an adapter if you wanted to adapt the gimbal to your tripod, which is something that some people end up doing, or even just putting it on a little tripod and using it as a selfie stick. Because I gotta admit, the Osmo Pocket for vlogging is a nice rig. The microphones are awkwardly placed, but the audio is pretty usable, and DJI, of course, made an external solution for you to use other microphones. So that's definitely one of the other options you can go with. Last but not least, I did want to talk about the other pickup that I made just to keep things smaller. The Rode Video Mic Go and the also the Rode, I want to say it's the Rode Video Go, but I got to make sure. Those are small microphones that you can have either lavalier or, shotgun. So the Rode Video Micro is the shotgun microphone, and the Rode Video Mic Go, I want to say, is the small lavalier microphone that has a built-in mic in the transmitter, so you can just clip it to your shirt and you have a microphone right there. But there's also a microphone jack for you to plug in a lav mic of your choice. Those have been vital. Again, small, easy to carry in a backpack or small shoulder bag. Really, really great pieces. So you can carry all of that with you and not be weighed down and not have to, unless of course you got to carry a tripod, and there's bunches and bunches of tripod recommendations, but I'll give you mine. Not so much a tripod, but a monopod. You can pick one up from Manfrotto. That's really good. I'll link to it in the show notes. And I believe I have one that I picked up. I think it's from Sirui, which is, I think it ran me like 40 or 50 bucks. It even came with a video head. And I like the monopod just because I could throw it in the backpack in a side pocket, or even clip it on the bottom of my backpack, and it's not huge or very, very obvious. If you live in New York City, you know that getting on the train or on public transportation with a backpack is a massive pain. So I try to keep the rig as small as possible. For the Photo Plus Expo, I'm probably going to be taking obviously the A6400, the Osmo Pocket for some time lapse, and my Rode Video Micro and also Video Mic Go for interviews and certain bits of B-roll and things of that nature. So that's pretty much going to be my convention rig. I'm not taking the Zoom H6. I don't see myself recording any podcasts at Photo Plus unless, of course, somebody's interested in doing an episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade on location. I doubt it, but you never know. And with regards to what backpack I'm going to use for that, usually I would use, something a little bigger, but now that I've scaled my kit down so much, I use a Case Logic backpack. You could buy it on Amazon for about 30 bucks. Really good. I think at the time I paid a little bit more, but I've seen it as low as 30 bucks. You can pretty much put everything in there. It's not very big. It's not very turtle shell like, and it's been a lifesaver. Other than that, if you want to go a little bit more pricey, the Peak Design backpacks are amazing. Every person that has a Peak Design backpack, whether it's the smaller size or the bigger size, has said nothing but positive things about it. It's a stellar backpack, and I'll make sure to link to that in the show notes. So just to recap, if you want to go bigger, obviously you can use a Canon XA10 for your video work and your camera of your choice. If you're going smaller, I gotta recommend the A6400 or even the A66 if you want in-body stabilization. The 6600 is very expensive though. I picked up the 6400. I actually got it used from B&H, and I pretty much paid exactly what I paid for the Canon M50, which was nice. So obviously check different retailers, and I'll link to a couple of different ones in the show notes for this episode. But obviously, going smaller is key. You want to carry less stuff, especially if you're by yourself doing any of these conventions. You want to be able to set up quickly, run, get your shot. If you're doing videos or podcasting, if you're doing videos or interviews of any sort, even though I recommended the monopod, if you're going to stand and do any interviews with a handheld mic or in front of a booth, get a tripod and don't use a monopod. And I'll tell you why. Even though the monopod is capable of standing on its own, it can fall over if somebody kicks it, and that has happened on more times than I care to admit. At a Samsung event a few years back, I had the monopod propped up against the balcony, so I was capturing the video footage, and someone tripped on a cable. The cable pulled up the monopod, and the monopod almost flipped over and flew over the balcony. Luckily, I grabbed it quickly because I had my hand tied, I had part of the strap tied to my hand. But if it would have been the tripod, the cable would have probably gone between the legs and it wouldn't have even impacted the video footage much. So if you're shooting any videos and you're standing in front of a booth or you're standing in front of a person that's working the booth, definitely use the tripod in that case. Like I said, I'll put some recommendations in the show notes for this episode. I'll give you one cheap recommendation and one slightly more pricey recommendation and let you choose from there. But a tripod is huge, especially if you can fold it down small enough that it can fit nicely in a backpack, or even if you are using a Peak design, you can put it underneath. That's vital. That is really, really, really huge. No monopods for any sort of booth shooting. Now, if you're standing and you're getting B-roll, or if you're just walking through trying to run and gun, then a monopod may come in handy in that instance. But any other time, though, just use the tripod. You don't want to run into somebody kicking your stuff over and breaking your gear. It really, really sucks. So those are my recommendations for any sort of convention or event coverage. Obviously, there's some other items that I can throw in there. Rechargeable batteries, of course, are huge, especially if you're doing any sort of video with the Osmo Pocket. If you pick up one of those, or even just with your phone, you'd be surprised how much video I've captured with just my iPhone in a jam, especially if you're in a tight space and you can't pull out like a camera or, bigger gimbals or any of that craziness. The phone is a lifesaver. So definitely rechargeable batteries are huge for that. If you are an iPhone user, you can also get battery packs you can attach to your phone. Mophie makes a good one. Apple obviously makes one that's pretty solid. I use the Apple one on my iPhone XS, and it doesn't make it too big or too fat. So it's not too bad. It's able to still stay in your pocket. The Mophie one is a little bit more rugged. I feel it's a little bigger and adds obviously some weight to your phone. But the Mophie, I definitely feel, adds more weight than Apple's offering. But that's an option as well. So you can get portable battery packs. I like the stuff from MyCharge, and like I said, Mophie or the Apple cases for your devices. I'll include links for that in the show notes. So there you have it, folks. Those are my recommendations for events and conventions, my toys and tech, I should say. If you're traveling out of town, I gotta say toys, and I say that again in quotes. Man, the Nintendo Switch, I never thought I would really give as much of a damn about a Nintendo product, but I've done a couple of trips out of town for work, and the Switch has been a lifesaver, being able to play Street Fighter or play some games and just zone out for a little bit and not worry about the person sitting next to me snoring. I mean, don't get me wrong, a tablet, an iPad, stuff like that is good. But the Switch has been a lifesaver, especially for, like I said, long trips or trips on the Long Island Railroad here in New York or the subway. Definitely a nice piece, a nice toy that I gotta recommend for sure. That's tops on my list, the Switch. All right, folks. So it gave you a nice quick 30-minute rundown on some of the stuff you can use. As always, full disclosure, some of the links in the show notes may be affiliate links, which if you click, we get a small commission. It doesn't impact what you're paying for the item, and those commissions go towards giving you just a better experience on RageWorks, whether it's on the site, through our shows, or via any of our other content. So definitely use those links for your purchases. We would really, really appreciate it. Last but not least, if you're interested in being a guest on a future episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade and sharing your story, your toys, and your tech, you can email me, rich@rageworks.net. Wow. You can email me, rich@rageworks.net, or you can use the contact form on the site. Last but not least, you can always find Rageworks on social media, on the social media platform of choice. I'm not going to run them down. You guys know the deal. Find us on any of those platforms. I will say that I engage most on Instagram just because it's easy. And on Twitter, I'm starting to step up my Twitter engagement. When it comes to Facebook, obviously we got a fan page, but we also have a Rageworks group. So if you want to get in there, chop it up with myself and any of the other staff about toys, tech, wrestling, whatever's going on, definitely stop in. We always are open to new members, so definitely stop by and join us and join the conversation. That's it. All right, guys, thank you for checking out this, I guess it's a solo episode of Toys and Tech of the Trade, your one-stop shop for toys, tech, and talk. I'm Rich. I'm out of here. Thank you, guys. Peace.